welcome to another episode of Sports and Discourse with your host, Derek Stevenson. And Big Blue Nation, is it time for us to start getting worried? And the reason why I'm asking you is because I feel like the program is in shambles right now, man. I mean, it just seems like every day is something new, right? First we got players leaving early for the draft. We got players that on the team that didn't play that leave early for the draft. Then we got transfers. Then we got assistant coaches leaving. And it just seems like every day is going to be something new. It's like you just find yourself sitting around waiting like to see what bad news are we going to get today. And in all fairness, I have to say Oscar Tshiebwe coming back to Kentucky is probably some of the greatest news that we've had as a long time, or that we've had in a long time as Kentucky Wildcat fans, right? I mean, who would have thought that we would have a guy come in as a transfer, end up being player of the year, and then we get him 2 years, right? Because what we've been used to at Kentucky, we've been used to not only the players that are ready for the pros leaving, but we've been used to some of the players that aren't so ready for the pros also leaving, right? So whether you think Mr. Big O himself, Oscar Tshiebwe, is ready for the pros or not, that's neither here nor there, but he's back. So I don't want to completely act like, we haven't had any good news. And Severe Wheeler is back as well. So, happy to see them guys come back and make another run at it. But it's just been really interesting to see. We got Toppin in the draft. We had Keon Brooks in the draft, but then I guess he pulled his name out and decided that he's going to transfer, right? And that's a really interesting situation. And the reason why I think that's interesting is because it makes me feel like we probably going to get this Baylor Scheiberman kid. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But matter of fact, let me look at that again and make sure. Baylor Shireman. So anyway, so the Keon thing, it makes me feel like we probably going to get this kid because that's the only reason that I can really see a scenario where Keon would leave for his senior year. It just doesn't make any sense because we got Reeves, Antonio Reeves, which I like Reeves. Reeves seems like he can score in a lot of different ways. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Ty Washington. The only thing that would concern me is, how is he going to defend in the SEC? And, when I watched a lot of his clips, it seemed like the offense was centered around him. And that's one thing that Coach Calipari really doesn't do. He doesn't really design offenses to key to or cater to a certain individual. It's always a team-based offense, right? So with that being said, we'd have to wait and see how he fits in whenever he doesn't just, whenever he's not being fed the ball like he is, when he plays at his respective school. And the same with Shireman, too. They both seem like they get, a lot of touches and a lot of the offenses based on them being able to handle the ball and make plays and get a lot of buckets. But hopefully if we get them two players, it will help because they do both seem like they're polished scorers, right? And that's one thing that, I feel like we were lacking this year. I felt like we didn't really have, multiple guys that I just could count on every single night to do great things, right? Pretty much you can book it. Oscar Tshiebwe was going to get you a double-double. We knew that. But outside of him, after, people started having some injuries, Ty Washington and Severe Wheeler was having some injuries. Then Grady said that he was, nursing the injury the whole season or for a decent amount of the season. So it seemed like when them boys, had their injuries, they really didn't come back the same. And you just really didn't know what you was going to get each game. It was just kind of like you got to wait and see. Like, we knew, like I said, you could pretty much guarantee Oscar was going to give you 15 and 13. Like, you could almost book that. But anybody outside of that, we just really wasn't sure. And I feel like Antonio Reeves and Shireman are guys that can at least get you some buckets, right? And like I said, we're going to definitely have to wait and see if they're capable of doing it, in the SEC level and against better competition, which they look like, they look like some pretty polished scorers. They look like they both can shoot pretty deep. Like they kind of got some NBA range to them. So, hopefully that's what this Keon Brooks situation means. But it's just kind of frustrating right now because it just seems like the new landscape of college basketball is just going to always be chaotic, right? It was already chaotic enough for Kentucky fans to have to deal with all of this one and done action, right? But for the most part, Cal was able to keep things under control, and he was always able to build the majority of his roster. He might have been missing a piece here and there, but for the most part, we kind of knew what was to come. But with this new era of college basketball that's starting, and even college sports in general, I'm just focusing on Kentucky basketball right now, but just college sports in general, with this NIL situation happening, you're going to have a lot of players moving around. And now college coaches are going to have to start recruiting high school players. Then they're going to have to start recruiting college players. Then they're going to have to worry about keeping players on the team happy so that they don't transfer and leave them. And you even got a situation down in Miami where, one of the kids on their team, I'm not even familiar with the kid, but, he was getting some NIL money, and he came back and he told whatever company that he did his deal with that he felt like he should get some more money, and he should be paid more than whatever the other players on the team was making through their NIL deals. And I feel like once you get to the point where players are doing that, things are going to get real, real tricky, right? Because you're going to cause a whole lot of friction on the team. Number one, you're going to have players that's going to be competing with each other instead of winning. You're going to have them worried about who's getting the most NIL money, who's the most popular player. You might have kids, trying to funnel money to their parents and thinking like, well, I got to make this amount of money because if not, I got to give my mama this much. And they might even have some baby mamas. Like, I got to take care of my baby mama. She got to get this much. And if you can't promise me this, then I got to go to this school and get it. And it's just going to get really crazy to me. And I feel like, you see Roy Williams step down. You see Coach K step down. Then out of nowhere, you see Jay Wright step down. And I wonder if any of this is played on them, man. Like, I wonder if they all just kind of sat down and was thinking about how things are now in college and just decided they didn't want to put themselves through it, man. In my opinion, it almost seems like it would be better to just have like a mediocre job. Like, for instance, what Rick Pitino has, right? He's up there in Iona, right? And it's probably way more relaxing to coach Iona than it is to coach Kentucky right now. Because he probably don't have to worry about that as much. Calipari has a lot to worry about now, man. And I just wonder, is it going to break him down too? Is he going to be the next one to give it up? At this point, I honestly couldn't really say that I blame him because it's just too much, man. Like, you got to deal with the Kentucky fans, and y'all know we crazy. Everybody knows we crazy. We trying to win it every year, and unrealistic expectations are always high at Kentucky, right? And I say unrealistic expectations because even though we only have 8 championships in like 100 years, you got to win every year at Kentucky, right? In Calipari's last several years, he's kind of starting to look like he fell off a little bit. So he's already got to deal with us. Now he got to go convince top-notch high school players to come here. Then he's got to convince the players that's already on his team to stay to build with the younger cats. Then he's got to, be scouting players from other teams throughout the whole entire season in case some players on his team leave. He's got to be able to see who's doing what and how he can fill the roster, right? And it almost might even become this new era to where the focus is not even necessarily on freshmen anymore. It might become who's the best junior and senior transfers, right? And with this NIL money, it wouldn't even shock me. You know what I'm waiting to see? I'm waiting to see the first star player, right? For instance, right? Oscar Sheway reportedly got $2 million for an NIL deal, right? Now he's the player of the year. Now, when is it going to happen to where you have a kid like him and then say like a Duke or a North Carolina goes to Oscar and say, man, we'll give you $4 million. Like Kentucky giving you 2, we give you $4 million. And I know that technically the schools can't pay these players, right? And if you're kind of confused about all the legal, all the legality of the NIL, I actually did another episode. You should check it out on my show it's called The Truth About the NIL. And it goes into, all the details of how like technically you can't take money from a school and technically you can't be paid based on your performance and all of these other things. And at the end of the day, I believe everybody's still going to figure out a way how to break the rules, right? Like you can't technically be paid by Kentucky to play at Kentucky, but an organization can be formed and that's not associated with a Kentucky, but is Kentucky, and they can pay you. So that's just how they work around it. Just like I used an example in that episode of the Texas Longhorns, right? The Texas Longhorns football coach came out and said that he needed help at the lineman position, right? So then, shortly after that, a nonprofit organization called Hearts for Horns is formed, and they're paying $50,000 to linemen that sign with Texas and do a little community work, right? So basically, Texas is paying those players, but technically they're not breaking the law, right? So anyway, I'm just waiting for for this first moment when somebody like a star player is basically lured away in free agency, which is what it is. And it's the sad part about it is it's even worse than in the NBA, because at least in the NBA, when you sign somebody to a contract, you got them for 4 or 5 years or however long it is. You just, you determine and decide to sign the player for. It might be 1 year, might be 3, whatever it is, you at least got them locked in. In college, you have no idea. Like at the end of the season, you have no idea what's happening. You have no idea how to prepare for this. You have no idea how to go forward building your roster. And it's going to be a whole lot of promises and a whole lot of lying to the kids, because at the end of the day, if you're a coach and a kid is asking you, hey, coach, who all's going to be on the roster next year? You got to tell him something. If he says, is it going to be a spot for me to start? You got to be like, yeah. But you really don't even know, because you don't know who all is actually going to be on your team at this point. Like, you don't know if you're going to have 3 guards and 2 forwards, or if you're going to have 4 forwards and 1 guard. Like, you just have no idea. And I think eventually it's going to get to a point where a lot of these coaches at these big schools are just going to step away from it, man, because I can only imagine what these guys are going through, man. And as much as I don't want to take Cal off of the hot seat, because I think Cal has to do a better job, and he has to get Kentucky, he has to restore the feeling with the fan base that we can compete again and that we're as good as all the other schools. So at the end of the day, he still has to do his thing and he has to get better. But I really feel for the man right now, just knowing all the things that he's got to deal with. And I just hope that he continues to hang in there. But who knows? It wouldn't shock me if tomorrow when I woke up, I found out that Coach Cal had retired. He was the next one. We just never know from day to day. So anyways, y'all let me know, what do y'all think about this whole new era of college basketball with the NIL and, all the transferring. I call it, professional college sports now, because that's basically what it's turning into. Every year is free agency. So y'all let me know what y'all think about it. And I'll see y'all next time. Sports and Discourse with Derek Stevenson.